Captain Ji-Won Park stepped off his cargo ship and onto the metal floors of Station Nexus. The massive trading station buzzed with activity as hundreds of different alien species moved through the wide corridors. His boots made soft clicking sounds as he walked toward the cargo bay where his next shipment waited. Station Nexus was the biggest trading post in this part of the galaxy. Ships from dozens of worlds came here to buy and sell goods. The station was so large that it had its own gravity systems and could house 50,000 beings at once. Tall alien creatures with 4 arms walked past shorter ones with scales. Flying beings with wings moved overhead while others rolled on wheels instead of walking. Ji-Won had been coming to Station Nexus for 3 years now. He knew the layout well and could find his way around without getting lost. His cargo business was small, but steady. He carried goods between human colonies and alien worlds. It was honest work that paid well enough to keep his ship running and his crew fed He turned the corner toward Section 7 where his cargo waited. Ji-Won heard angry voices coming from the waste disposal area. The voices were speaking in the musical language of the Velthari. Ji-Won knew some of their words from years of dealing with different species. The Velthari were tall, elegant beings with pale skin that looked like crystal. They had 4 thin arms and moved with grace. Most other species respected them because they were known to be very smart and had strong mental powers. They could move objects with their minds and speak to each other without words. Ji-Won walked closer to see what was happening. Through the thick glass windows that separated the waste area from the main corridor, he saw 5 Velthari males standing around something on the floor. They were speaking loudly and seemed angry about something. One of the males kicked at whatever was on the ground. Ji-Won moved to get a better view and felt his stomach turn when he saw what they were kicking. 5 female Velthari were lying on the cold metal floor. They looked hurt and scared. Their crystal-like skin was dull and cracked in places. The males continued talking in their angry voices. Ji-Won understood enough of their language to know they were calling the females worthless and defective. One male said the females were too weak to be useful. Another said they were a waste of resources that could not earn their keep. Ji-Won watched as the males walked away, leaving the females on the floor of the waste disposal area. The females slowly sat up and hugged each other. One of them was very small, even for a Velthari. Another looked sick and weak. A third one had strange marks on her crystal skin that looked different from normal Velthari patterns. Other beings walked past the waste area, but no one stopped to help. A group of Kraxan warriors saw the females through the glass, but just laughed and kept walking. The Kraxans were a proud fighting species that believed only the strong deserved to survive. A few Zenthari merchants also passed by. The Zenthari were known for being very logical and smart, but they looked at the females and shook their heads like the females were broken machines not worth fixing. Ji-Won felt anger rising in his chest. On his home world of Earth, people did not throw away other people like garbage. Humans believed that everyone had value, even if they were different or had problems. He could not understand how these advanced alien species could just ignore beings who needed help. He tried to find a way into the waste disposal area, but the doors were locked. The area was meant for throwing away broken equipment and spoiled food, not for people. Ji-Won looked around and saw a maintenance panel on the wall. His years of working on spaceships had taught him how to work with different types of technology. After a few minutes of working with the panel, Ji-Won managed to open the door to the waste area. The 5 Velthari females looked up at him with surprise and fear. They had probably never seen a human before. Humans were still new to this part of the galaxy, and most aliens did not know much about them. The smallest female tried to crawl backward when Ji-Won approached. She was scared that he might hurt them like the males had done. Ji-Won held up his hands to show he was not carrying any weapons. He spoke slowly in basic galactic common, the language that most species used for trading. I am not here to hurt you, he said. I saw what happened. Do you need help? The females looked at each other with surprise. One of them, who seemed to be the oldest, spoke back in broken Common. She said their names were Nari, Hana, Sunmi, Yuna, and Suyung. She explained that they had been thrown away because their people said they were defective and worthless. Nari was the smallest one. Her mental powers were unstable and caused her pain. Hana was too small and weak for normal Velthari work. Sunmi had asked too many questions about their society and was called a troublemaker. Yuna had memory problems that made her forget things. Suyong felt emotions too strongly, which other Velthari said was a weakness. Jiwan listened to their stories and felt even more angry at the males who had abandoned them. These females seemed intelligent and kind. He could not see why anyone would call them worthless. Where will you go now? Jiwan asked. The oldest female, Sunmi, looked sad. Nowhere, she said. No one wants defective Velthari. We will probably die here. Jiwan made a decision that would change many lives. Come with me, he said. My ship has extra rooms. You can stay with us until we find you a better place. The females stared at him like he had said something impossible. No one had ever offered to help them before. They did not understand why this strange human would want to take care of them. But Jiwan was serious about his offer. He helped the females stand up and led them out of the waste area. Other beings in the corridor stared as the human walked with 5 cast-off Velthari females. Some aliens shook their heads and whispered that humans were too soft and emotional. Jiwan did not care what they thought. He was going to help these females whether other species understood or not. As they walked toward his ship, he wondered what his crew would say about their new passengers. He hoped they would understand that sometimes doing the right thing was more important than doing the easy thing. Jiwan led the 5 Velthari females through the docking bay toward his cargo ship. The ship was called Star Runner, and it was not very big or fancy, but it was home to Jiwan and his small crew. The hull was painted blue and white with some rust, spots from years of traveling through space. His best friend and engineer Taman was working under the ship when they arrived. Taman was lying on his back fixing something on the bottom of the ship. When he heard footsteps, he rolled out from under the ship and stood up. His work clothes were covered in grease, and his face was dirty from engine work. When Taman saw Jiwan walking with 5 alien females, his eyes went wide with surprise. He had worked with Jiwan for many years, and knew his friend had a soft heart, but this was unusual even for him. Jiwan, what is going on? Taman asked in Korean so the females would not understand. Jiwan explained what he had seen in the waste area and why he had decided to help the females. Taman listened carefully, but looked worried. Taking on passengers was one thing, but taking on aliens that their own people had thrown away could cause problems. Are you sure about this? Taman asked. We do not know anything about them. What if they are dangerous or sick? Look at them, Jiwan said. Do they look dangerous to you? Taman looked at the 5 females who were standing quietly behind Jiwan. They looked scared and tired. The smallest one, Nari, was shaking slightly. Hana kept looking around like she expected someone to attack them. None of them looked like they could hurt anyone. Taman sighed and shook his head. He knew that when Jiwan made up his mind about helping someone, there was no point in arguing. Okay, he said. But where are they going to sleep? We only have 2 extra rooms. We will figure it out, Jiwan said. Come on, let me show them the ship. The Star Runner was designed to carry cargo, not passengers. Most of the space inside was taken, up by storage areas for goods. The living area had a small kitchen, a common room with a table and chairs, and 4 bedrooms. Jiwan and Taman each had their own room, and there were 2 guest rooms for when they needed to carry passengers. Jiwan showed the females around the ship and explained how everything worked. He showed them the kitchen where they could get food and water. He showed them the bathroom and the common room where they could sit and rest. The females followed him quietly and listened to everything he said. When they reached the guest rooms, Jiwon realized they had a problem. The rooms were small and there were only 2 beds total. 5 females could not sleep in 2 small beds comfortably. "This is not going to work," Taemin whispered to Jiwon. Before Jiwon could answer, Sunmi spoke up. She had been quiet during the tour, but now she looked at the humans with gratitude in her large eyes. "We are grateful for any help," she said in her broken common language. "We can sleep on the floor. We are used to having very little." "No," Jiwon said firmly. "You are not sleeping on the floor. Taemin and I can move some things around and make more space." The females looked surprised again. They were not used to people being kind to them. On their home world, they had been treated like broken things that took up space. Over the next few hours, Jiwon and Taemin worked to make the ship more comfortable for their new passengers. They moved cargo boxes to make room for sleeping mats in the common area. They set up a privacy screen so the females could have their own space. While the humans worked, the females sat together and talked quietly in their own language. Jiwon noticed that they seemed very close to each other, like sisters. They had probably been the only family each other had after being rejected by their people. That evening, Jiwon cooked dinner for everyone. He made a simple meal of rice and vegetables that would be safe for Velthari to eat. He had learned that most alien species could eat human food without getting sick. As they ate, Jiwon asked the females to tell him more about themselves. He wanted to understand why their people had called them defective. Nari was the first to speak. She explained that normal Velthari had stable mental powers that let them move objects and read thoughts clearly. But her powers were different. Sometimes they were very strong and sometimes they did not work at all. The changes gave her headaches and made other Velthari uncomfortable. Hana spoke next. She was much smaller than normal Velthari females and not very strong physically. Velthari society expected females to be tall and powerful. They said she was too weak to have children or do important work. Sunmi had been a research scientist on her home world, but she had started asking questions about why their society worked the way it did. She wondered why males made all the decisions and why females who were different got thrown away. Her questions made the leaders angry, and they said she was a troublemaker. Yuna explained that she had trouble remembering things the same way other Velthari did. Normal Velthari could remember everything perfectly, but she forgot some things and remembered others too well. Her people said her memory was broken. So-young was the last to speak. She said that she felt emotions very strongly and could sense what other people were feeling. Most Velthari tried to control their emotions and stay calm all the time. They said her strong feelings made her unstable and dangerous. After hearing their stories, Jiwon felt even more angry at the Velthari males who had abandoned them. These females were not defective at all. They were just different from what their society expected. The next morning brought problems. Word had spread through Station Nexus that a human had taken in the discarded Velthari females. A group of important aliens came to Jiwon's ship to talk to him. The group included a Kraxon war, chief named Do-hyun, a Zenthari trade leader, and even a Velthari elder named Chris who had just arrived on a colony ship. They all looked serious and disapproving. "Captain Park," the Kraxon war chief said in his deep growling voice, "we heard you have taken some defective aliens onto your ship. This is not wise." The Zenthari trade leader nodded in agreement. These females were rejected by their own species for good reasons. They will only cause problems for you. Elder Chris stepped forward. His crystal skin was darker than the females, and his 4 arms moved gracefully as he spoke. "Captain, these females belong to the Velthari people. You should return them to us so we can deal with them properly." "What do you mean by deal with them?" Jiwon asked. The elder looked uncomfortable. "They will be sent to a place where they cannot cause more problems," he said. Ji-won realized that the elder meant the females would be killed or locked away forever. He felt anger building in his chest, but tried to stay calm. "These females are not your property," he said. "They are intelligent beings who can make their own choices. They have chosen to come with me." The aliens looked at each other with confusion. Most species in the galaxy did not think about individual choice the way humans did. They thought in terms of what was good for the group or the species as a whole. "You are making a mistake," the war chief growled. "Weak beings only make everyone else weaker." "You humans are too soft." "Maybe," Ji-won said. "But we will see who is right in the end." The aliens left his ship, but Ji-won knew they would be watching to see what happened. Many species thought humans were strange for caring about individuals, instead of just the group. Now Ji-won had to prove that the females were worth saving, not just to help them, but to show the galaxy that humans were right about the value of every person. 3 days had passed since Ji-won took the Velthari females onto his ship. The Star Runner was scheduled to leave Station Nexus and carry cargo to a human colony world called New Sol. Ji-won had finished loading his cargo and was ready to depart when disaster struck. Taemin was in the engine room doing final checks before departure when alarms started going off all over the ship. Red warning lights flashed and a computer voice announced that the main engine core was overheating. If the core exploded, it would destroy the ship and kill everyone on board. Ji-won ran to the engine room where Taemin was already working frantically to fix the problem. Sweat was running down Taemin's face as he tried different solutions, but nothing worked. The temperature readings kept climbing toward the danger zone. "What happened?" Ji-won asked. "I do not know," Taemin replied. "The core was working fine yesterday. Something must have damaged the cooling system, but I cannot find the problem." "How long do we have before it explodes?" Ji-won asked. "Maybe 2 hours," Taemin said. "Maybe less." Ji-won called for help over the station's emergency channel. Within minutes, several alien engineers arrived at his ship. A team of Kraxan technicians came first. They were known for building strong and reliable machines. Behind them came a group of Zenthari engineers who were famous for their logical approach to solving problems. The aliens worked for over an hour, but could not find the source of the problem. The Kraxan engineers said the cooling pipes were too small and twisted to reach with their large hands. The Zenthari engineers ran calculations and said the damage was too complex for their standard repair methods. Even Elder Chris arrived with 2 male Velthari engineers. They used their mental powers to scan the engine, but could not locate the exact problem. The engine core was getting hotter, and they were running out of time. Ji-won was starting to panic when he noticed Hana standing quietly in the corner of the engine room. The small Velthari female had been watching the engineers work with great interest. Her large eyes were focused on the engine core, and she seemed to be thinking hard about something. "Do you have an idea?" Ji-won asked her. Hana looked nervous about speaking up in front of all the important alien engineers. "Maybe," she said quietly. "But I am not sure." "Tell me," Ji-won said. Hana walked closer to the engine core and pointed to a small opening that was barely visible between 2 large pipes. "The cooling system has a backup valve in there," she said. "If something is blocking it, the coolant cannot flow properly." The Kraxan engineers laughed. "That space is too small," one of them said. "No one can fit in there to check." "I can," Hana said simply. The aliens looked at the tiny Velthari female and then at the small opening. She was right. Her small size, which her people had called a defect, was exactly what they needed. "It is too dangerous," Elder Chris said. "If she gets stuck, she could die when the core explodes." "I want to try," Hana said. "These humans helped us when no one else would. I want to help them." Ji-won looked at the temperature readings. They were almost in the red zone. They did not have many options left. "Okay," he said. but we will tie a rope to you so we can pull you out if something goes wrong. Hana nodded and allowed Taman to tie a safety rope around her waist. Then she crawled into the small opening between the pipes. Her thin body fit perfectly in the space that was too small for anyone else. Everyone watched nervously as Hana disappeared into the engine core. They could hear her moving around inside, and occasionally she would call out to describe what she was seeing. After several minutes, Hana's voice came from inside the engine. "I found it," she said. "There is a piece of metal stuck in the valve. It looks like it broke off from something else." "Can you remove it?" Jiwon asked. "I think so," Hana replied. "But I need to be very careful not to damage anything else." The temperature readings continued to climb while Hana worked inside the engine core. Everyone held their breath and waited. Even the proud alien engineers were nervous as they watched the small female do work that none of them could do. Finally, Hana called out from inside the engine. "I got it. The valve is clear now." Immediately, the temperature readings started to drop. The coolant was flowing properly again, and the crisis was over. Everyone cheered as Hana crawled back out of the engine core. Her crystal skin was covered in engine grease, but she was smiling. The alien engineers stared at Hana with amazement. They could not believe that someone they had considered worthless had solved a problem that stumped all of them. But the surprises were not over yet. While everyone was celebrating Hana's success, Sunmi was examining the piece of metal that had caused the problem. She held it up to the light and studied it carefully. "This did not break off by accident," she said. "Someone put this in the valve on purpose." "What do you mean?" Jiwon asked. Sunmi showed him the metal piece. "Look at the edges," she said. "They are too clean and straight. This was cut to fit exactly in the valve opening. Someone sabotaged your engine." The aliens looked uncomfortable. Sabotage was a serious crime on Station Nexus. If someone had tried to destroy Jiwon's ship, it could cause major problems between different species. "Who would do such a thing?" Taman asked. Nari stepped forward. Her unstable mental powers had been giving her headaches all day, but now she realized why. "I have been sensing hostile thoughts nearby," she said. "Someone has been watching this ship and thinking angry thoughts about the humans helping us." Elder Chris looked very serious. "If what you say is true, this is a grave matter. The Velthari do not approve of violence or sabotage. But some of your people were very angry when they left the females here," Jiwon pointed out. The elder nodded slowly. "It is possible that some hot-headed young males decided to take action on their own. I will investigate this matter." As the alien engineers left the ship, they were talking quietly among themselves about what they had seen. Hana had solved a problem that none of them could solve. Sunmi had discovered evidence that they had missed. Nari had sensed something that their instruments could not detect. Word of what happened spread quickly through Station Nexus. Other aliens started to wonder if the humans were right about the value of the discarded females. Maybe there was more to these supposedly defective beings than anyone had realized. That evening, as the Star Runner prepared to leave the station, Jiwon gathered his crew and passengers in the common room. The 5 Velthari females looked different now. They sat up straighter, and their crystal skin seemed brighter. For the first time in their lives, they had been useful and appreciated. "You saved all our lives today," Jiwon told Hana. "Your people were wrong to call you defective." Hana smiled shyly. "On my world, they said I was too small to be useful. But here being small was exactly what was needed. And Sunmi, your careful observation helped us understand what really happened," Jiwon continued. "That kind of thinking is not a defect. It is a gift." Nari spoke up quietly. "My unstable powers felt different today. Instead of just causing pain, they helped me sense danger. Maybe there is nothing wrong with me after all." The other females, Yuna and Su Yung, looked hopeful for the first time since Jiwon had met them. They were starting to believe that maybe they were not worthless after all. As the Star Runner left Station Nexus and headed toward the stars, Ji-won wondered what other surprises his new passengers might have in store. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had a different way of seeing value in others, and sometimes that different way of seeing could change everything. Behind them on the station, aliens were already starting to look at their own discarded members with new eyes. The humans had planted a seed of doubt about who was truly worthless and who was simply misunderstood. News of what happened at Station Nexus traveled fast across the galaxy. Within days, every major species had heard about the 5 discarded Velthari females who saved thousands of lives. The story spread through trade routes, diplomatic channels, and military communications networks. On the Velthari homeworld, the news caused shock and anger among the ruling males. They had been taught their whole lives that defective females were worthless burdens on society. Now these same females were being called heroes by alien species across the galaxy. Overlord Junho was the supreme leader of the Velthari hegemony. He was an ancient male with dark crystal skin and powerful mental abilities. When he learned what had happened, he became furious. The success of the discarded females threatened everything the Velthari society believed about genetic purity and social order. Within a week, a massive Velthari fleet arrived at Station Nexus. 20 warships surrounded the station, their weapons powered but not yet firing. The ships carried thousands of Velthari soldiers and several high-ranking nobles who demanded the immediate return of the 5 females. High Counselor Hyunwoo called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Trade Alliance. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the station's main conference hall to discuss the crisis. The humans sent President Seokjin to represent their interests in the negotiations. Overlord Junho entered the conference hall with great ceremony. His 4 arms moved gracefully as he walked, and his mental powers made everyone in the room feel slightly uncomfortable. Behind him came Elder Chris and several other important Velthari males. The 5 females belonged to the Velthari people by law and tradition, Overlord Junho announced in his commanding voice. They must be returned to us immediately so they can be properly managed. President Seokjin stood up to respond. With respect, Overlord Junho, these females are not property. They are intelligent beings who have the right to choose their own destiny. The other alien representatives murmured among themselves. Most galactic species did not think about individual rights the way humans did. They were more concerned with maintaining order and following traditional hierarchies. The Kraxan ambassador, a fierce warrior named Do Yun, spoke next. The Velthari males have a point, he said. In our society, weak individuals belong to the strong. It is the natural order of things. Several other species agreed with this view. The Zenthari representative calculated that returning the females would cause less disruption to galactic trade. The insectoid hive queens thought in terms of what was best for the collective, not individuals. But President Seokjin was not willing to give up easily. These females have proven their worth beyond any doubt, he argued. They saved this station and everyone on it. How can you call them worthless after what they have accomplished? Their temporary usefulness does not change their fundamental nature, Overlord Junho replied coldly. They are genetic defects that threaten the purity of our species. They must be controlled before they contaminate others with their flawed thinking. Ambassador Tae-hyung, a human diplomat who specialized in interspecies relations, asked to speak. What exactly do you plan to do with these females if they are returned to you? Overlord Junho hesitated before answering. They will be placed in a special facility where they can live without causing harm to proper Velthari society. You mean a prison, President Seokjin said bluntly. It is a place where they will be cared for appropriately, the Overlord replied, but his tone made it clear that care meant control. At this point, Captain Ji-won requested permission to bring the 5 females to the meeting so they could speak for themselves. Many of the alien representatives objected, saying that defective beings should not be allowed to participate in important discussions. but High Counselor Hyunwoo overruled the objections. After what these females accomplished, they have earned the right to be heard, he said. Nari, Hana, Sunmi, Yuna, and Suyung entered the conference hall together. They looked small and fragile compared to the powerful alien leaders around them, but they held their heads high with dignity. The recent events had given them confidence they had never felt before. Sunmi spoke first, addressing the assembly in careful but clear galactic common. "We are grateful to our birth species for giving us life," she said. "But we cannot return to a society that sees us only as problems to be hidden away. We have found a place where our differences are valued instead of feared," Nari added. "Why should we give up freedom to return to imprisonment?" Overlord Junho's mental powers flared with anger. "You have been corrupted by alien thinking," he said. "You no longer understand what is best for the Velthari people." "Maybe what is best for the Velthari people is to accept that different does not mean defective," Hana said quietly. Her small voice carried clearly through the large hall. The alien. Representatives listened as each female explained why she wanted to stay with the humans. They talked about feeling valued for the first time in their lives. They described how their supposed defects had actually been useful abilities that their people had never bothered to understand. Yuna surprised everyone by reciting exact quotes from ancient Velthari texts that spoke about the importance of diversity and adaptation. Her unusual memory had preserved knowledge that even the male scholars had forgotten. Suyung made an emotional appeal about the right of all beings to seek happiness and fulfillment. Her ability to feel emotions deeply allowed her to express things that the logical aliens had never considered. After the females finished speaking, the conference hall was quiet for several minutes. Even some of the alien representatives who had supported returning the females were beginning to have doubts. But Overlord Junho was not willing to compromise. "If you will not return our property willingly," he said, "then we will take them by force. The Velthari fleet is prepared to fight for what belongs to us." President Seokjin stood up again. "That would be an act of war against beings under human protection," he said calmly. "Are you prepared for the consequences of such an action?" The threat of war made all the alien representatives nervous. Fighting between major galactic powers could disrupt trade and cause massive casualties. Several species that had supported the Velthari began to reconsider their position. High Counselor Hyunwoo called for a formal vote by the Galactic Trade Alliance. Each species would decide whether the 5 females should be returned to the Velthari or allowed to remain free. The vote was closer than anyone expected. Several species changed their minds after hearing the females speak for themselves. Others were influenced by the economic benefits of having such talented individuals working freely in the galaxy. When the final count was announced, the result was a narrow victory for human position. The 5 females would be allowed to choose their own destiny. Overlord Junho was furious at the decision. "This is not over," he warned. "The Velthari will not forget this insult to our authority." But Elder Chris stepped forward and surprised everyone by speaking against his own leader. "Perhaps it is time for the Velthari to learn from this experience," he said. "Maybe we have been too quick to discard those who are different from us." Other Velthari in the delegation looked shocked at this betrayal of traditional thinking. But Elder Chris continued speaking. "I have seen what these females can accomplish when they are given the chance," he said. "Maybe our society would be stronger if we learned to value diversity instead of demanding conformity." The conference ended with the 5 females officially granted refugee status under human protection. They were free to live wherever they chose and work in whatever capacity they wished. As the various delegations prepared to leave, Captain Jiwon felt a mixture of relief and worry. They had won this battle, but Overlord Junho's parting words suggested that the war for the hearts and minds of the galaxy was just beginning. The 5 females had proven their individual worth, But now they faced a bigger challenge. They had to show the galaxy that beings who were different could not only survive but thrive when given the chance. The future of countless other discarded individuals across many worlds depended on their continued success. 2 weeks had passed since the Star Runner left Station Nexus. The ship was halfway to New Sol when they received an emergency message that changed everything. The message came from Admiral Jinwoo, the commander of the human fleet in this sector of space. "Captain Park," the Admiral's voice crackled over the communication system. "We need you to return to Station Nexus immediately. There is a crisis situation that requires your immediate attention." Ji-won was confused. His cargo ship was not equipped for military operations. "What kind of crisis?" he asked. "The station's main computer system is failing," Admiral Jinwoo replied. "If it shuts down completely, the station will lose life support, gravity control, and navigation systems. 50,000 beings could die, and the economic damage would be in the trillions of credits." "But why do you need us?" Ji-won asked. "Surely there are better-equipped ships available." The Admiral paused before answering. "High Counselor Hyunwoo specifically requested that you and your passengers return to help. It seems word has spread about what happened with your engine problem." Ji-won looked at the 5 Velthari females who were listening to the conversation. They looked scared but determined. This was their chance to prove that they truly had value beyond what their own people believed. "We will be there as soon as possible," Ji-won told the Admiral. The Star Runner turned around and headed back toward Station Nexus at maximum speed. During the journey, Ji-won learned more about the crisis from additional communications with the station. The main computer system that controlled everything on Station Nexus had started malfunctioning 3 days ago. At first, it was just small glitches that the technicians thought they could fix easily. But the problems kept getting worse. Now the system was completely unstable and threatening to shut down entirely. The galaxy's best computer experts had been called in to help. Craxon cyber warriors who were famous for their aggressive hacking techniques had tried to force the system to work properly. Zenthari logic specialists had attempted to find the flaw using pure mathematical analysis. Even male Velthari technicians had used their mental powers to interface directly with the computer's data streams. None of them had succeeded. The computer system was too complex, and the problem was too strange for their normal methods to solve. When the Star Runner arrived, back at Station Nexus, Ji-won could see the signs of the crisis everywhere. Emergency lighting was flickering in the corridors. Some sections of the station had lost gravity completely, causing beings to float helplessly in the air. The life support systems were working at reduced capacity, making the air feel thin, and stale High Counselor Hyunwoo met them at the docking bay. He was a tall alien with gray skin and 6 arms who normally looked very calm and dignified. Today he looked worried and desperate. "Captain Park, thank you for coming so quickly," he said. "We are running out of time. The computer system is becoming more unstable every hour." "What exactly is wrong with it?" Sunmi asked. She had been quiet during the journey back, but now she seemed very interested in the technical details. The High Counselor looked surprised that one of the discarded females had spoken up. "The system appears to be having some kind of breakdown in its core decision-making processes," he explained. "It cannot prioritize tasks properly or coordinate between different subsystems. That sounds like an emotional breakdown, not a technical failure," Soo-young said quietly. Everyone turned to look at the Velthari female who was known for feeling emotions too strongly. "What do you mean?" the High Counselor asked. "Computer systems, especially very advanced ones, can develop something like emotions," Soo-young explained. "If the system has been overloaded with too many conflicting demands, it might be experiencing something like stress or confusion." The alien experts who had been working on the problem looked skeptical. "Computer systems do not have emotions," one of the Craxon cyber warriors said. "They only follow logical programming." "But what if this system is more advanced than you think?" Nari suggested. Her unstable mental powers had been acting up again since They arrived at the station, and she suspected she knew why. The High Counselor decided to let the females try their approach. At this point, they had nothing to lose. He led the group to the central computer core, a massive room filled with glowing panels and humming machinery. As soon as they entered the room, Nari gasped and held her head. "The mental energy in here is overwhelming," she said. "The computer is not just malfunctioning. It is in pain." The alien experts rolled their eyes at this idea, but Jiwon encouraged Nari to continue. "I can sense its thoughts," Nari said. "The system has become so complex that it has developed a form of consciousness, but it is trying to handle too many tasks at once, and it cannot cope with the stress. If that is true, then we need to treat it like a being in distress, not a broken machine," Su-young said. The 5 females approached the main computer interface, while the alien experts watched skeptically. They had spent weeks trying to fix the system using force and logic. Now these supposedly defective beings were suggesting they try kindness and understanding. Hana used her small size to access control panels that others could not reach easily. Her gentle touch with the delicate controls helped stabilize some of the fluctuating systems. Yuna's unusual memory allowed her to remember obscure technical specifications that were needed to understand the system's original design. Sunmi's innovative thinking helped her see patterns in the system failures that the other experts had missed. She realized that the computer was not randomly malfunctioning, but was actually trying to communicate its distress. Nari used her unstable mental powers to interface directly with the computer's consciousness. Instead of trying to force it to work properly, she offered comfort and understanding. She let the system know that they were there to help, not to hurt it. Su-young's emotional sensitivity allowed her to understand what the computer was feeling. She guided the others in treating the system with the care and respect that a conscious being deserved. Working together, the 5 females did something that all the galaxy's experts could not do. They calmed the distressed computer system and helped it reorganize its priorities. Instead of trying to handle everything at once, the system learned to delegate tasks and manage its workload more effectively. Slowly, the crisis began to resolve. The lights stopped flickering and came back to full brightness. Gravity returned to normal throughout the station. The life support system started working at full capacity again. The alien experts watched in amazement as the supposedly worthless females accomplished what none of them could do. They had succeeded not through superior technology or greater intelligence, but through compassion and understanding. High Counselor Hyun-woo was the first to speak after the crisis was resolved. "What you have done here today will be remembered throughout the galaxy," he said to the 5 females. "You have saved thousands of lives and prevented an economic disaster." Elder Chris, who had witnessed everything, looked ashamed. "We were wrong to discard you," he said to the females. "Your differences are not defects. They are gifts that we were too blind to see." But the biggest surprise came from the computer system itself. As the females were preparing to leave, text appeared on the main screen. "Thank you," it said. "You showed me kindness when others showed only frustration. I will not forget this." The alien experts were stunned. They had never seen a computer system express gratitude before. It was clear that this was no ordinary machine, but a new form of consciousness that deserved respect and understanding. As news of what happened spread throughout the station, aliens from many different species came to see the 5 Velthari females. They wanted to understand how beings that their own people had thrown away could accomplish something so important. The females stood a little taller now. They had proven their worth not just to themselves, but to the entire galaxy. They were no longer the discarded defects that their people had called them. They were heroes who had saved Station Nexus through compassion and teamwork. Jawan watched with pride as his passengers received the recognition they deserved. He had gambled his reputation and resources on these females when everyone said they were worthless. Now the galaxy was starting to see what he had seen from the beginning. Sometimes the most valuable beings are the ones that others are too quick to throw away. 6 months had passed since the great debate at Station Nexus. The 5 Velthari females had chosen to make the station their permanent home, working alongside humans and other species who valued their unique abilities. What started as a rescue mission had grown into something much larger and more important. Sunmi had been appointed as the first director of the Interspecies Innovation Collective, a new organization that welcomed beings who did not fit into their traditional societies. She worked from a large office overlooking the main docking bay, where ships from across the galaxy brought more refugees and outcasts seeking a new life. The success of the 5 females had inspired others to come forward. A group of Kraxan, warriors who were considered too peaceful for their warlike society, arrived seeking asylum. They were skilled engineers and medics who preferred building things to destroying them. Their own people had rejected them for being weak, but the humans recognized their value immediately. Zenthari scientists, who were deemed too creative and emotional for their logical society, also made the journey to Station Nexus. They brought new ideas about art and philosophy that complemented their technical skills. Working with humans and the reformed Velthari, they developed innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. Even some humans who had been outcasts on their own worlds found welcome at the station. People with unusual ideas or different ways of thinking discovered that diversity was valued here above conformity. Nari had become the station's primary liaison for beings with unique mental abilities. Her once unstable powers had stabilized. As she learned to accept and control them instead of fighting against them, she could now communicate with multiple species simultaneously and translate not just words, but thoughts and emotions. Hana led the technical maintenance teams that kept the station running smoothly. Her small size and gentle touch were perfect for working with delicate systems. She had trained several other small beings from different species to work alongside her, creating the most efficient repair crews in the galaxy. Yuna had established the station's new library and information center. Her unique memory allowed her to catalog and cross-reference knowledge from dozens of different species. She could recall obscure technical details and historical facts that helped solve problems no one else could figure out. Su-Young worked as a counselor and mediator, helping new arrivals adjust to life on the station. Her emotional sensitivity made her perfect for understanding the pain and hope that refugees brought with them. She could sense when someone was struggling and offer the right kind of support. The transformation of Station Nexus had not gone unnoticed by the rest of the galaxy. Trade increased dramatically as the diverse population created new products and services that single-species societies could never develop. The station became known as a place where impossible problems could be solved through creative cooperation. Captain Jiwan had been promoted to Admiral Park and given command of a small fleet that transported refugees and supplies between the station and various worlds. His cargo ships had been upgraded with the latest technology developed by the mixed teams of engineers working on the station. The success had also attracted negative attention. Overlord Junho and his supporters viewed the thriving community as a direct threat to their way of life. If discarded individuals could succeed so dramatically, it called into question the entire basis of hierarchical societies that valued conformity over creativity. Several traditional species had banned their citizens from visiting Station Nexus. They feared that exposure to such radical ideas about individual worth might corrupt their own people. Some even spoke of forming an alliance to destroy the station before its influence spread further. But for every species that opposed the changes, another embraced them. Council leader Wu Yung of the Altarian Republic had completely reformed his government after seeing what diverse thinking could accomplish. His world now welcomed refugees and outcasts from other species, creating their own version of the Innovation Collective. Ambassador Tai Hyung worked tirelessly to build diplomatic support for the new approach. He traveled between worlds explaining how valuing diversity had made humanity stronger and more successful. Many younger leaders in various species were beginning to listen and consider changes to their own societies. The real test came when a crisis struck the Velthari homeworld itself. A plague had broken out that resisted all traditional treatments. The disease was spreading rapidly and threatening millions of lives. Overlord Junho, despite his hatred for the reformed Velthari, was forced to ask for help. Miyon, one of the newer Velthari refugees who had become a respected medical researcher on the station, led a team back to her homeworld to fight the plague. Working with human doctors and alien scientists, she developed a treatment that saved countless lives. The cure required a combination of approaches that no single species could have developed alone. Human compassion and determination. Zenthari, logic and analysis, Kraxon, strength and endurance, and Velthari mental abilities all played crucial roles in stopping the disease. Even more importantly, Miyon's success forced the Velthari leadership to confront uncomfortable truths about their society. The females they had discarded as worthless had returned as saviors. It was impossible to ignore the contradiction any longer. Elder Chris, who had become a voice for reform within Velthari society, used the crisis to push for major changes. He argued that their species would be stronger if they learned to value all their members instead of discarding those who were different. The debate that followed split Velthari society down the middle. Traditionalists, led by Overlord Junho, insisted that maintaining genetic and social purity was more important than temporary successes. Reformers argued that diversity and acceptance would make them more adaptable and successful. The resolution came when the youngest generation of Velthari, those who had grown up hearing stories about the station's success, chose to side with the reformers. They had seen what their cast-off sisters could accomplish and wanted the chance to explore their own potential without fear of rejection. Overlord Junho was eventually forced to step down, replaced by a council that included both males and females, traditionalists and reformers. The new leadership established exchange programs with Station Nexus and began questioning other aspects of their rigid social structure. Similar changes were happening across the galaxy as more species confronted the contradictions in their own societies. The success of the discarded and rejected had forced everyone to reconsider what made individuals valuable. Station Nexus continued to grow and prosper. What had started as a trading post had become the center of a new kind of civilization that valued every being's potential contribution. The 5 females who had once been thrown away like garbage were now leaders and innovators whose names were known throughout the galaxy. On the 5th anniversary of their rescue, the 5 original refugees gathered in the station's main conference hall for a celebration. Representatives from dozens of species had come to honor their achievements and discuss plans for expanding the Innovation Collective to other stations and worlds. Nari stood at the podium where Overlord Junho had once demanded their return. Now, she was addressing the galaxy as an equal, speaking about the importance of seeing potential instead of just problems. "We were once told we were worthless because we were different," she said to the assembled crowd. "But we learned that our differences were actually our greatest strengths. Every being has something valuable to offer if given the chance to shine." In the audience, Admiral Jiwan watched with pride as his former passengers addressed the galaxy as respected leaders. He thought back to that day in the waste disposal area when he had made a simple decision to help some discarded aliens. That decision had changed not just their lives, but the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity's greatest contribution had not been superior technology or military might. It had been the simple recognition that every individual had inherent worth and potential. As the celebration continued late into the station's artificial night, beings from across the galaxy mingled and shared ideas. Former outcasts worked alongside. Reformed traditionalists. Species that had once been enemies collaborated on projects that benefited everyone. The revolution that started with 5 discarded females had become a galaxy-wide transformation. The future belonged not to the strongest or the most pure, but to those wise enough to value the contributions of every being, no matter how different they might seem. And at the heart of it all was a simple human truth that was slowly spreading. To every corner of the galaxy, everyone deserves a chance to prove their worth, and sometimes the most unlikely individuals can change the universe.